So which is the better dividend stock to buy, Verizon or AT&T? I'm going to answer that question in this video. I'm going to compare the two using revenue growth, earnings per share growth, dividend yield, payout ratio, and of course valuation. So let's get right into it. The first slide I have here is looking at Verizon and AT&T over 10 years and looking at their annual revenue growth. And if I was to give assign a winner here, I would say, it's hard to discern a winner because AT&T was ahead for several years, and then in the most recent year, Verizon took over. So I don't know. I would give this a tie. I would say this is a tie in terms of revenue growth because of the choppiness and shakiness. Both companies very slim year over year revenue growth, and that makes sense, right? They're in a very saturated market in terms of postpaid phone subscribers. They're mostly switching between each other customers. Customer is going from Verizon to AT&T or moving from T-Mobile to AT&T and so on. The industry itself is not growing, and so you can understand that revenue growth would not be robust in this industry. So not surprising to see relatively flat revenues here. In the most recent year, Verizon grew 4% and AT&T was a negative 1.7%. All right, so let's say a tie in this metric. Revenue growth tie. Nobody wins. Moving on, the next metric I will look at is the dividend yield for Verizon and AT&T. And in terms of the dividend yield, AT&T has the higher yield at 7.9%, approaching almost 8%, and Verizon is 7.25%. Both very robust dividend yields. And then let's look at the payout ratio. So the payout ratio measures the percentage of earnings that are paid out in dividends. Okay, so whatever profits the company makes, what percentage of those profits are paid out in dividends? And this tells investors how sustainable that dividend is, because if there's a large margin of safety between profits and the dividend payout, that means even if profits fall, the company can maintain the dividend without having to cut the dividend payment. So let's look at it here. Verizon's dividend payout ratio is 51%, and in this case, the lower it is, the better. And AT&T is close to 67%. So Verizon wins in terms of the payout ratio, but AT&T wins in terms of the dividend yield. Again, here hard to decide a winner because AT&T's dividend yield is higher, but they're also having a higher payout ratio, which could lead for them to have to reduce their dividend in the future, or it could also lead to slower dividend growth in the future. So again, I'm going to have to call this a tie here between AT&T and Verizon on the dividend yield and the payout ratio. All right, moving on here to the earnings per share annual, going back 10 years. And in this regard, I can see a clear winner here. Verizon is clearly doing a better job growing and expanding earnings per share. You go back to 2014, they were actually behind AT&T in that year, and since then they've made major progress and have been ahead of AT&T for several years, and most recently earnings per share of $5.32 was better than the $2.76 of AT&T. But more important than the actual sum, the absolute value of this figure is the growth from where they started to where they are now. Verizon has achieved better growth, substantially better growth. So Verizon gains the clear win here. All right, moving on to the final step in this comparison, which is valuation. And to value these two giant dividend paying giants, these passive income machines, I use the price to earnings ratio and the price to free cash flow ratio. And let's start with the price to earnings. Verizon at 7.1 is more expensive than AT&T at 6.3. and also Verizon at the price to free cash flow of 14.6 is more expensive than AT&T's price to free cash flow of 8.8. So Verizon, combining the two, is substantially more expensive than AT&T, and I don't think they've I don't know. I don't think they've earned that much of a premium valuation over AT&T. Yes, I do believe they deserve a premium to AT&T because of their much better earnings per share growth, but I don't think that substantiates as much of the premium as it's getting. Especially if you look at their most recent quarters, AT&T did a much better job in attracting subscribers, postpaid phone subscribers than Verizon did, adding a few 100,000 more postpaid subscribers than Verizon, and AT&T's earnings per share increased year over year in its most recent quarter, where Verizon's fell year over year in its most recent quarter. So the near term um, forces are also in favor of AT&T here. So in conclusion, if I had to pick a winner, although it's very close, right? They were tied on a couple of metrics, and only Verizon was better in the earnings per share growth. They're very close, but if I had to pick a winner, I would say AT&T is the better dividend stock to buy here. AT&T is the better dividend stock to buy. All right, thank you for watching. I also have videos on each of the stocks and whether or not each stock is a buy in case investors don't want to pick between the two. If you want to buy both of them, that's perfectly fine too. They're both recommend. I've recommended both AT&T and Verizon stock as a buy. I'll link to those videos at the end of this one. So I'll see you over there. Go over there and watch those videos before you decide to buy any of these stocks. All right. So thank you for watching. I'll see you over there. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for all investors of all skill sets and risk levels. So I'm proud to partner with the Motley Fool to bring you 10 stock picks from their popular product, Stock Advisor. Stock Advisor has beaten the market by more than 3 times. Go to fool.com/parkev to get your 10 stock picks now.